Hello again. So, for you, it may have been a couple of days, but for me, it's not been that long at all. It's been like mere moments since I just finished the last book talk. And I am ready to talk about the next book that I read in the 2 weeks that I was not at work. This Wicked Fate by Kaelin Byron. So, this is the second book in a duology. The first one was This Poison Heart, which was a book that I loved. It made me so happy. So much botanical poison garden joy. I loved it. It was great. So I've kind of been waiting to read this book. And when I finally was like, okay, so what else am I going to pick to read during Christmas break? This was top on the stack. So we have basically, this book is a hero's journey book. It is a maid, not blood family book. It is a fate and the gods book. So those are the three main genre pieces that I would look at. So, where do we start? You have to read the first book. You have to read This Poison Heart because this book literally dumps you right in to the moment that you left the last book. You don't have a recap, a retelling of that previous book right away. It is just bam, you are back 6 seconds after you left in this book, which, sometimes that's great, sometimes not so much. I'm not going to argue either way in this particular one because the fact that I love the last one, I remember it so strongly. I know exactly where all of our characters were at the end at that moment. And I'm ready to go. So, things that you may need to know. All of our characters are basically after the same thing. This lovely thing called the... Okay, I'm going to screw this up. Absyrtus Heart. So Absyrtus is Medea's brother in Greek mythology. And everyone is after this thing called the Absyrtus Heart, which is 6 plants, basically. Medea, when her brother died, took his heart and divided it into 6 parts so that, for various mythology reasons. And each part incredibly poisonous. Only the family in this book have the powers to touch it, because their special skill is they are not affected by plant poisons. So, in fact, they control the growth of and all aspects of plants. We only had one piece of the Absyrtus Heart in the first book. And at the end of that book, our main character's mother is killed in front of her in an attempt to get that piece of the Absyrtus Heart. The mom's name was Thandi. And it took me forever because it was all over the first book, but not all over the second book. She's just called Mom repeatedly. I think her actual name is only listed like 2 or 3 times in this book. So, um, so at the end of the book, Mom is dead. The Absyrtus heart piece has been transformed but is safe. And there comes a knock at the door, and family members who we've been told the entire length of the first book are dead and have willed this house in the middle of nowhere with the Absyrtus heart piece in it to our main character are not dead. They're standing at the door. So it's at this point that I would like to say I make notes on what I want to say in these, and I literally had to like draw out a family tree of all of the characters for me to keep everything in my head nice and straight. So, main character is Brisset. She is a young African American girl who has the power to control plants. She makes them grow. She is not affected by poison. Her parents are a lesbian couple, Mo and Thandi, who have adopted her. She has never known her birth mother. Her birth mother is Celine. Celine is dead. She was literally killed by the same person who kills Thandi. But years apart, obviously. So, Celine has a sister named Circe, after the witch in Greek mythology. So, Circe is the member of the family who we think is dead all book one, who shows up at the end and is literally part of the driving thrust of book two. So, Celine and Circe are in direct line of descent from Medea, who we've already mentioned. And Medea and Arbustrus' mother is the goddess of night, Hecate. So, and that's not everything. Circe has a love interest who we see a lot more in book one, but we don't know who's the love interest until later on in book two. Dr. Grant, who's kind of like the head of the sheriff's department, which isn't called a sheriff's department in this book. Our main character, Bree, has her own love interest, Marie, who looks like a 17-year-old but has actually been alive for hundreds of years. And we'll explain that in a moment. Bree has a driver named Nyx, who is somehow, some way strong, connected to the gods. We're never fully given that. Nyx also has a pet named Roscoe, who's a griffin. We deal with that later. Nyx has a somewhat significant other who is traveling with Circe. Her name is Persephone, who is somewhere along the line of Celine and Circe to Medea related, but who's also been alive for apparently hundreds of years. There's also the bad guys who, if you know Medea, you also know Medea's husband, Jason, from Jason and the Argonauts. His family, his line, because Jason basically dumps Medea in the mythology and marries someone else. His line is the villains. And the most important character there is Carter, who is the son of the main villain from the first book and who we are led to believe may be the main villain in book 2. So it's all this complicated connection stuff, and you've got not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 lesbian couples. So we've got lots of LGBT joy. You've got POC joy. It's all over. And then there are the gods. So, okay. Back up. So, this is a hero's journey story. The whole thing is Hecate has taken the dead mom, Thandi, into her realm and says, if you can combine the 6 pieces of the heart in 28 days, 1 lunar month, I will give you back your mom. So we are starting knowing where just a single piece of the heart is. When Circe and Persephone show up at the door, they are carrying 2 more pieces of the heart in cages. Covered cages, so we don't know exactly what they are, and one of them, well, both of them are not what you think they are. We are then told that Persephone's long life and Marie's long life are both caused by them having been affected by the heart. So they are 2 more pieces of the heart. So we're up to 5. So there's only really 1 piece that we're looking for, because we've got all the other pieces. And it is going to be this race. Where is it? How do we get there? How do we get to it? Between Bree and Carter. The Medea side of the lines, the Jason side of the lines. Throughout, we are going to interact with more than one god. And up until Bree sees Hecate take Thandi into her realm, no one really knows that the gods are still around. We are greeted by, in total, let's see, technically 5 more gods besides Hecate. A character from the first book is discovered to be one of the 3 fates. She's technically Clotho of the fates. And the fates are hiding under a museum because that's where fates should hide, apparently. We eventually meet Hermes, who is hiding out as a lighthouse keeper. And the actual Persephone, not the Persephone that we've already seen. The goddess Persephone, for whom our Persephone is named. Other aspects of mythology that show up, Roscoe the Griffin, obviously. The sirens are a big issue. And although not named, the implication is that, see, to get to the final location, our group, the Medea group, goes through the sirens. And the Jason group goes through an equally hard challenge. And the implication is that it's Charybdis and Scalia, the rock and the hard place. So, yeah. It is a lot of, like Bree going on this hero's journey. Will she get her mother back? All of that fine stuff. It's a good book. It's not as good as the first one. Sad to say. Because in the first one, part of what I loved was all of the botanical elements. And there are less of that here. This is much more the hero's journey and myth. Okay. In the end, we find that our villains aren't exactly who we thought they were. And we have to deal with whether or not we can accept that. We find that the way that we interact with our friends means a lot more than we thought it did. Interactions between Persephone's, interactions between Hermes and everyone, you know, all of these little connections turn out to be really big. We are left with a happy ending because sometimes happy endings are good. Overall, it's a 3.5 star book. I do love the cover, which does match really well with the original cover, but it is what it is. I was not as happy with this as I wanted to be, but it was still a decent read. And again, I'm trying not to go into too much detail to ruin the story, but yeah. Okay, so I have 2 more books, so I'm going to make 2 more videos, and I'll see you the next time. Bye.